Hi there, I'm Jonathan. I'm one of the five MLTI 2.0 ambassadors, and until June 2021, I was the tech integrator at Cape Elizabeth Middle School. I wanted to talk to world language teachers for a minute about two different ideas that might work well in a distance learning setting. They don't focus on particular tools, but on just the way that you utilize um, video conferencing and whatever platform you're using for interacting on video with students to your advantage. Hopefully, maybe even providing something that would replicate a school experience and in some ways enhance it depending on how you structure it. So the first one is to connect your students with your own students around first a writing prompt and then following up with a conversation. So you start off with the question you post in a classroom and a blog, depending on how you do that, in Google Classroom, I should say, where you say, tell me about a favorite activity when it's beautiful weather outside. So the student A responds, student B also responds. Then you ask them to respond to one another, and then you offer feedback both to the original posts and the responses. Then, with a series of, depending on your level of language, prompted questions, you ask them to further discuss the subject that they've already written about. And the teachers I spoke to found that this initial scaffolding of having thought about it in advance really elevated the level of conversation and made it a little more natural. You could add in, for example, use five new vocabulary words and demonstrate your ability to use those. But then having the students record that conversation that's just between the two of them gives you both a written product from that student to respond to and the video product for pronunciation and for actual usage in, I guess I would say, on the fly. A number of teachers I talked to found that that was a really nice way to get a mini snapshot of how a student was doing. And it was also allowing the students to do that. Yes, they were synchronous with one another, but it was asynchronous to the class, and it didn't require that it happen exactly within the bounds of a particular period on a particular day, which gave those students some flexibility in terms of how much time they wanted to prepare for it and how robust you wanted the assignment to be, how long the writing was, and how long the conversation should be. So that's idea number one. And then idea number two came from Susan Dana, who is a teacher at Cape Elizabeth Middle School and was one of the foreign language teachers of the year several years ago, is one of those people that would never say, I use technology flawlessly, but it's so beautifully embedded in her classroom that it incredibly enhances her students' experience without being the subject of what she's doing. So again, not focusing on a particular app or tool, but just on the capacity that, in this case, again, video conferencing provides. So she has a friend who teaches in Latin America. Those students are connected to a student in her classroom, so 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, depending on the numbers in the classes. And she gives an assignment to create a monster. And the monster has to have certain characteristics. The students are writing about it in Spanish. And in the Latin American country, those students are doing the same thing, but they're writing about it in English. Then the video conferences between the two sides have one English student and English native speaking student and one Spanish native speaking student paired with one another, and they talk about each other's monsters in both languages. So the US students speak about it in Spanish. They have that conversation in Spanish about their monster. Then they switch roles, switch languages, and it has created this incredible opportunity for the two classes to bond with one another. They've also had the opportunity to meet as whole classes with one another and do some activities. But there are a number of ways that you can find a classroom like that if you don't already have one that you'd like to connect to. And you'll see in the next slide that I offer you a couple of resources for both of these activities. Plus, in this classroom that you're in right now, where you clicked on the video, take a look at the link on the desk, which will take you to a Twitter chat for world language teachers that doesn't require any particular time of day that you log in. They use the hashtag for the chat for phenomenal ideas for teachers. And there's some really great and unique ideas there that I'm hoping you'll benefit from. And then down the left side of the classroom, you'll see there are a number of flags, and each of those flags will connect you to a world language teacher either in or around Maine, also using their Twitter account. One of those is Susan Dana, but the remainder are people that have demonstrated some really impressive skills and sort of ideas, and I feel like can operate as a PLN, a professional learning network that offers really just a buffet of great ideas for you to choose from. You don't need to be a Twitter user to get on these. You can just take a look and browse around. You'll see that when you go to either the chat link or the individual links, there are all kinds of other hashtags embedded in those. They'll be blue typically. And when you click on one of those, it will take you to additional posts about that subject. So if you're not familiar with Twitter, if it begins with an @ sign, that's a handle, that's a person or an organization. And if it begins with a number sign, that's a hashtag. That'll be a topic or something that you can explore in further depth. So I hope those three things are helpful. The first, where we're writing and talking with our own students. The second, where we're connecting with the classroom outside of your school with speakers of whatever language you study with your students as their native language. And then finally, the resources through Twitter, whether through that chat or through the individuals that I hope are helpful. I'll see you in a couple weeks with some more suggestions. Thanks.